So now, after doing the graph on Geometry Sketchpad, we're going to take a look at this situation. And here you can see that I've got the two lines in different colors. The blue line represents the linear equation for Carson's cars, and the red line represents the rental cost for rent to drive. And so first equation, C equals 30 plus 0.2K is rent to drive, and C equals 25 plus 0.3K is the blue line, which is Carson's cars. And so on this grid, we've got these two linear equations represented together. And this is called a linear system. And the reason it's called a linear system is because it's made up of more than one component. So two or more lines on the same grid would be a linear system. So now we're going to decide which company Chad should choose. And here's our graph again. And realize that the kilometers driven is on our horizontal axis and cost for renting the car is on our vertical axis. And when we draw this, you should realize that the blue line is a little bit steeper, and that's because Carson's cars has a greater slope. And I've got this written a little bit differently because this is now in y equals mx plus b form. The slope here is 0.3, and for rent to drive, the slope is 0.2 because the kilometer charge is lower for rent to drive. So the red line, because it has a lower slope or less, the slope is a lower value, it's going to be less steep than the blue line. And you'll note that the two lines intersect at one point, and that's going to be the key we're going to look at in linear systems here is this intersection point. And if we look to the left of that line, then you'll notice that the cost for renting the car is less than if you went than the red line. And if we look to the right of that point, then the cost is going to be less for the red line because remember cost is on a vertical axis. So the lower the line is at a given point, the lower the cost. And so when he makes the decision as to which car company he's going to choose, it is going to depend on how far he plans on driving. And so now we're going to try and give him a little bit better idea of when he should pick which car company. And so if we take a look at Carson's cars here, it seems that at the point where they meet, it's 50 kilometers. And that means that if he is going to drive less than 50 kilometers, so 50 or fewer kilometers, or sorry, less than 50 kilometers, it's cheaper to rent from Carson's cars. And this is an estimate here. We're going to show how you can actually determine the exact value, but it seems that it's about 50 kilometers when we're making this decision. So if we take a look to the right of that point, then again, here's our 50 kilometers. It seems that rent to drive is going to be cheaper because the cost is lower. So if he plans on traveling more than 50 kilometers, then he should choose rent to drive. And what we want to know when the costs for both companies the same. So again, remember we said that this appeared to be 50 kilometers, and the cost for driving 50 kilometers is $40, or that's what it appears from our graph. So the thing is, we really don't know. So what we're going to do is use algebra to determine if this is indeed the point where the two companies cost the same. In other words, we want to know what's the critical kilometer number of kilometers driven for him to choose one company over the other. And so if exactly 50 kilometers are driven, then the cost for renting the car is $40 for both companies. And we're going to show how you can determine that exactly. And the point of intersection is the solution to our linear system. In other words, it's the point where the two linear equations are have the same x and y value. And so here, our x value, or our kilometers driven, is 50, and our y value is 40. So from the graph, it appears that the solution to the linear system is 50, 40. And we're going to check to see if that's correct. So what we're going to do is confirm that the point 50, 40 belongs to both lines. In other words, satisfies both equations. So what I'd like you to do is sub in for k is equal to 50 and c is equal to 40 in both equations and see if that's true.